Hi everybody, welcome back to Clark Family Outdoors. My name's John, and in our series of going from a bee haver to a beekeeper, we're going to unravel the mysteries of a bee vac. So if you watch some YouTube videos out there, and there's a lot of great ones, have great ideas of bee vacs, they make it sound very difficult and very confusing, and so we're going to try to simplify things up for you. This is the very first bee vac that I created. This is what I used to pull out of the my very first cutout, my very first hive. Before I had any bees, I was doing a cutout in a church attic and from the sanctuary, the old sanctuary, and I used this bee vac to do that. Not very complicated, short and sweet. This type of bee vac using boxes has advantages and disadvantages, and I'm going to walk you through some of those. But here's the basics of a bee vac. I don't care if you're using buckets, I don't care if you're using boxes. It's pretty simple. You need a shop vac. This is my old 16-gallon one. It's huge, it's bulky, but it's what I have, and it's cheap because I already have it. I don't have to buy anything new. So I used it, and I modified my bee boxes to fit this bee vac. So you need a shop vac. You need some other container to hold the bees, whether it's boxes or 5-gallon buckets, doesn't matter. And you need some way to regulate the air pressure. And I'll walk you through what I do for this one. So here's the advantages of a box. First of all, let me just take off the ratchet strap here. I'll slide it back. I'll show you exactly how I build it. Hopefully you can see the bottom there. Okay? All right. You have the basics. You got a box of frames, but we'll pull the frames out for now. This is the bottom box. Okay? That's all it is. This is a place where I suck the bees into. So I've got it taped up with painter's tape, as I mentioned in my previous video. Painter's tape is always good to have, especially if you're using boxes for a bee vac. Let me take this off real quick so I can show you exactly what we got. I used that tape to make sure bees could not escape after we checked the vacuum off. But what I've got is just the connector. That was my bee vac. You could go buy a new connector and put it in there, but I just drilled a hole, put the connector in, and used some self-tapping screws here. You know, do a hole, cut a hole with a hole saw into your hive box, and then put this contraption in there that fits with your whatever size hose you have available. You can use pool hose, you can use whatever you want to, and it just slides on there. And this is the hose that we suck the bees out of. Now I know a lot of beekeepers are watching this and say, well, John, you shouldn't use that. It's ribbed, it's bad, it can hurt the bees. Let me tell you, of the 2 cutouts that I've done with this thing, we've done more than 2, but very few bees have died in the process. Yes, some will, I understand that, and yes, if I had a smoother hose, it might be better for the bees, but I don't know that because the ribs also give the bees a way to crawl. And they come in through the hose, they can always keep crawling this way. I don't know, but I'm just telling you, I've not lost a lot of bees, so I'm not worried about the hose. If you got pool hose, great. If you got whatever hose you ever have, it doesn't matter. Just get it, find a nice hose. This is, I don't know what, 1 1/4 diameter maybe, and find the associated adapter that can fit into your box, and that's what you use. The adapter that we have here in this box was actually on another shop vac somewhere at some point in time, and I stole both the hose and this adapter off that shop vac. Maybe got it at rummage sale for $5, I don't know, maybe less than that. But that's that. I screw and nailed in a bottom board, a flat bottom board. Now some people will tell you, well, you need to raise it, you need to slope it so the bees just don't hit a back wall and hurt themselves. Again, folks, I think some people try to make it more difficult than it really is. If you're vacuuming the bees with a low pressure, you're going to do very little damage to those bees. They're going to get knocked around, they're going to get their head bumped around, they're going to be a little dizzy, a little shaken up, but you're not going to kill that many in the process of this. So I'm not worried about having a slope board. I don't have one. Some people recommend it, and they may have better luck with it, so I'm not going to knock that. I've never tried that. I'm just telling you, this works for me. That's what I do. If you want to do a cutout, you're more than welcome to try this method as well. I've got eye bolts screwed in on the sides, so bolted in, drilled a hole, put in the eye bolt with a washer, and put the bolt in the back side. Now, these eye bolts that I have in here are to put the ratchet straps on. So I'll show you how that works in a second. But anyway, that's the bottom. Nothing special. There's nothing incredibly difficult about this at all. This is just the box where the bees will come into. They got plenty of room to land, plenty of room to crawl up, all that good stuff. On top of the bottom, you then put a box filled with frames. Now this is for illustrative purposes only. If you've got some frames at home that have comb in it, that have honey, whatever, you can put them in here. You want to give the bees plenty of space. So depending on the size of the bee population that you're pulling out, that you're vacuuming out, you may want to go every other one be empty. So like in here, I've got one with just wax frame. But let's pretend for a moment that this was full of honey or full of bee bread or whatever you want to put in here. I put it in there. The next frame would be empty, nothing, just empty space. And then I have another frame, and then I have another empty space, and so on and so on. So I always make sure I have plenty of empty space. This one actually has wires in it, so bees may cling to it. But you need a box full of frames, okay? That's the next step. Then you have the lid. Lid's probably the most important part. Two components to the lid. Number one, you got I just used a hole saw. I don't know what size it is, 2 inches, whatever it is. And I put some, all this is window screen. That's all it is. It's not number 8 hardware cloth. It's nothing fancy. It's just window screen. I put it right there. I have the adapter now for my big shop vac. So you've got to have some way to put the shop vac in, and this provides the pressure to suck the bees out. So you've got to have an adapter in here. This one I stole right off of the shop vac itself. And then on the inside, you gotta make sure there's a screen on there. Otherwise, you're going to be sucking the bees up into the shop vac, which you don't want to do. So make sure you have a screen here to prevent the bees from getting sucked up into the shop vac. That's the purpose of this screen. The reason why it's this thick in my box, just to make sure I had plenty of room for the screen here, not to hurt them. So that's that. Now, this provides ventilation when I'm taking the bees home. They've got some air. They got plenty of room in the box. If you need to, you can add a second super on here full of frames, or even a third super full of frames if you want to. But I just like to give them a little extra space, extra ventilation, and you have to have this sucker capped off so they're not sucking the bees up into the shop vac. The other purpose of that top hole where the ventilation is, I just have a board, glue on, came out of one of the packages probably, screwed it on, and this will control the airflow. So when I plug the shop vac in, if I have it closed, it's going to pull the most amount of pressure. It's going to have the most suck to it from the vacuum. Okay, it'll be the strongest setting. If the setting's too hard or too strong, then I just open it up and give more airflow out so it's not sucking near as hard. What you want is on this hose, as you're sucking the bees in, you want just enough pressure that if you stick it on the comb, it may just barely pull the bee, okay? If you're sucking bees in and they're flying in on full force, like from the shop vac, you're gonna kill the bees, okay? And that's why people will have different varying opinions about bee vacs. You're gonna kill them. You want it to be just enough that you can pull it off that comb, just a little pressure, just enough. If you can go like this in the air and suck the bees down, your pressure's on too high, you're gonna kill bees. Turn it down. It's a slow process, just takes time. You go up and down the comb, pull them in just gently, and then they'll go in the bee vac and be fine. But this right here, where that Luan board is screwed into the top, you just move it this way if you're not getting enough pressure, and you open it up if you're getting too much. Okay, this is your control valve for the pressure that you're getting in the bee vac. That's all there is to it. Now, why I carry painter's tape? First of all, there could be gaps around here, around the boxes. So around the boxes where I put the supers on, there may be some air gaps. Some of my equipment is very old, some of the equipment's has been used. So I'll take painter's tape. When I put it on here, I'll take painter's tape and I will just run a strip of painter's tape around every seal, cover up the holes, cover up the gaps, and that will give me better vac pressure. Now, honestly, with the size of shop vac that I use for this cutout, I really probably don't need to do this. I do it to be safe. It also prevents bees from escaping if there's a gap or whatever. So go ahead and use painter's tape. I wrap it all the way around all the supers, however many supers I'm using, and seal those gaps up. Then I will put the ratchet strap on, and you can see that, you know, that's what the eye hooks are for. So I'll go ahead and just do this as a demonstration. I'm not worried about squaring things up. I'm not worried about making this perfect. I'm just trying to teach you what I do for my bee vac. So run the shop vac in, tighten it down a little bit. Okay, that's good enough for now. So I want to tell you about the advantages and disadvantages, right, of this box. The box is cumbersome. It requires a plug-in shop vac. It's big, it's bulky. The benefits in this first super right here, the one that's not painted white, I've got the frames in there. When I get home, I can set the bee vac down, or the bee box down, and essentially I already have them all in the super. I can put the super on the bottom board, I can put another super on, whatever I need to do, I'm done. I don't have to dump bees. I don't have to do all the other stuff that comes with it. They're already in frames. By the time I drive home from a cutout, those bees are happy, or well, okay, they're not happy. They just lost their home, they've been misplaced, they're still confused. But the bees are living in, or making a home right now in that comb. You can use old drawn out comb if you want to. Just give them plenty of space so that they have room to move around and greater ventilation, especially on the trip home. And very especially since this is the only vent that you have to get them home. If I'm going for a real long distance, I may have to change this top up, but typically I'm within 30 minutes from home, and this is sufficient to get them home. So once the strap's on, you can change the bee box up any way you want to. What I did on our last cutout, you can probably see in the video, the one in Indianapolis, we had to take this up on a step ladder. We strapped it to a step ladder, and the box was turned this way. And again, I didn't crank anything down, so if I had it all tightened up, it wouldn't have split up here. But you can say, well, John, why would you do that? Well, number one, the shop vac was down on the ground, so we ran the big power tube up, and it fit right down in here, if you can see that, okay? And so it gave me greater distance from the ground to the step ladder, where this box was strapped to the step ladder. Secondly, as I suck the bees in, they go into this box here, but it makes it very easy for them to go vertically or horizontally rather into the frames. So you can go this way, bees come in, they hit the bottom or go toward the bottom, and then they can immediately crawl into these frames, not a problem. You can do it upright, you can do it down, whatever, however you want to do it. This box works, and it's pretty simple. It's not difficult at all to build. Anybody can build one. All you need are the adapter for your hose, and down here you need the adapter for this hose. You need a vent hole to be able to regulate pressure. You need to make sure everything's screened when you're done. What I do, I could build a screen, something fancy. I don't. When I'm done vacuuming the bees, okay, so we're almost done. I've sucked up the last few bees that I think I can get. I keep the shop vac running. I pull this off. I grab my painter's tape. The reason the shop vac's running is to prevent the bees from wanting to escape out the hole right here. So shop vac's running. I can now turn my shop vac off, and bees can't escape out at the end. So you can put as much painter's tape around here as you want to. You may get a few get stuck on that, but not many. So again, just painter's tape all the gaps before you start the vacuum process, like so. When you get home, peel the painter's tape off, set the box up upright, however you want to do it. Take it out to your bee yard. Let them sit there for, I don't know, as long as you feel comfortable. And when you feel comfortable with it, you can remove this hose, because we already had the screen in the bottom, remember? So that prevents the bees from getting stuck to the shop vac. So they got ventilation here on the way home. They got ventilation here on the way home. Get in the bee yard, take the top off, boom, you got a super full of bees. You just set it right there immediately on your hive. That's how I did the old Vac, the old trusty. We have since built another one to go on second floors. It's a lot simpler. If I was going to do a cutout this weekend and they were on the main floor, the first floor, get to them pretty easy, they're under a window or whatever, I would use the box. I would use the plug-in Vac. If I'm going to the second floor, I'm climbing off ladders, things like that, using scaffolding, I'm not using the box, it's too heavy. But this will do in a pinch, and this works, and most beekeepers have enough woodenware equipment laying around that they can easily make one of these. So I hope I explained it clearly enough. Not that difficult. Shop vac, adapter. Hose, adapter. Hole to regulate pressure. That's all you need with a Vac. Everything else is just, personal preference. This is what I use. It's worked for me. It can work for you too if you want to build one. And I'll show you some videos of how we use this in a cutout here. So stay tuned. Thanks again for watching Clark Family Outdoors. Again, we're trying to become a beekeeper instead of a bee haver. If you want to keep more bees, getting free cutouts or even charging for your time and labor if you want to, this is one way to get additional bees and to make additional money in the beekeeping business. And we all know that it's more or less, we're a non-profit institution, so to speak, so we're not making any profit. So any corners we can cut to make some money, to get some free bees, we need to do that. This works. Thanks again for watching.